Boom, buddy. Let's put you over here. What happened to you being on this side? Why don't you finagle your way over here? I mean, technically, I had to put you over here because you can't move on your own like that. So,
How was trick or
start with you.
treating?
It was fine.
Okay. Did you go in your neighborhood or you went somewhere else?
No, we did like Boo at the Zoo and stuff.
Oh. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And he was Blippy, Blippo, Bippo,
Evan was Blippy.
Blippy. Okay,
People who are parents know who that is.
okay.
Trust me, they know who that
I'm
is.
I'm sure. I think when you said something, Vanessa was like, "Yeah, I know who that was."
Yeah. How about
Hey,
this?
chat. We are starting later than normal, but we're coming in slowly. We're doing things. What's up, IMAX? Nice to see you.
How about that, buddy? No? Okay.
Come join us
How
as
about the
Leroy
bottom?
takes care of his child.
Is that better? Okay. You want to stand up? Okay, you can stand up. I know you like standing. Come on.
Carlos, hello. Nice to see you.
Hey, buddy. Uh, I will be dipping in and out, looking at the score of the game, because those Shamecocks lost once again.
Wait, so what? I'm confused. If they already lost, what game are you looking at?
Clemson game. They're playing Notre Dame.
That's tonight.
So, yeah, they started at 7.
I thought they played next week. Notre Dame.
Um,
I mean, you would know better than me, but okay.
what's today's date?
Today is the 29th.
Oh, you're right. It's next week because
Yeah,
they have an
because
off day.
okay. I was like, I don't think they're playing
Yeah,
this week.
I have a busy schedule, so I see
Okay,
games when I can.
fair enough.
I see games
Um,
when I can. So,
what's going on with you,
hey,
man?
buddy.
What you do today?
Uh, Evan had soccer. We went and
Hmm.
picked out a pumpkin at a pumpkin patch, and then we took the boys to Boo at the Zoo.
Fantastic.
Hey, yeah, say we went to the zoo. You want
I
to buy?
drove up
No.
to Charlotte for a brunch with the other black EPs in the market.
Oh, cool.
That was fun. Um,
I'm happy for you.
there aren't very many of us.
I mean, there's not that many. Period. I mean,
Yeah,
that's much
yeah.
less Charlotte. So,
Ken from Chicago, Leroy. By the way, do not send either of your kids to deliver messages on dragons.
um, tell Ken from Chicago I'm going to respond to his message because he still hadn't answered the one thing that I think no one has really. Bam, sit and be quiet. Um, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And you're not saying that new information can't change my mind, but no one has said to me that Rhaenyra has done anything she can or everything she could to be queen. I think
Hmm.
she was in. I think she's a nice person, and I think that's the problem with a lot of these people when it comes time to rule or even be politicians. Because if you think about it, think about like what it takes to be president. That's a little bit of arrogance to it. To think that
Sure,
I am the person that you people need to lead you to prosperity.
sure.
That's a little bit of arrogance. That's ego. And when you are an absolute ruler, whether you're a dictator, a king, or a queen, there is a little bit of that. There is a little bit of that in you, and I don't think she has it in her. I don't think she and Kim from Chicago. I think you're partially right. She never wanted to be queen. I think she didn't like the idea that she could never be queen. And for some people, when you tell them that you can't do something, it makes them want it. But then when she was given when she was given the role, or you know, Viserys is like, "You are my heir." She did nothing to prepare herself to be queen, and that's why um, And Kim Chicago said she didn't advocate because her dad told her the whole song. To me, and I say this, and I'm not trying to be funny, that prophecy is bullshit. And Damon was the best person to explain it to her. Dreams didn't make us kings and queens, dragons did. Basically, what he was saying is if you don't want it, if you're not going to fight for it, you really don't want it. And that's the same thing we say every day. You will make time for the things that are important to you. She did not make time to be queen. She really didn't. She didn't know if she wanted it or not. And that was the biggest problem in that whole show for her. She's a good person. And we've watched how many seasons of Game of Thrones? Is this a ninth season of the
I mean, in the Game
franchise?
of Thrones universe, sure.
How many good people made it to the end unscathed?
Not many.
Not many.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, we're not talking about Game of Thrones. If y'all want to hear our thoughts on Game of Thrones, go watch the review. It's on the YouTube page. Ken from Chicago.
Mhm.
Leave your comments there, sir. We're not talking about that right now. Although it may pop up. You know us. We kind of go all over. We're talking about Hideo Kojima.
We are? Okay,
Um,
cool.
yeah,
Hey,
we're talking about Hideo Kojima. And but House of the Dragon is a prequel. She doesn't know it. Ken from Chicago, we will have another discussion about House of the Dragon. But anyway,
hey.
Hideo Kojima, is he overrated? Yes.
Um,
All right, done. Nice guys. We're good.
well, I mean, you're one half of this, and I say no. So 50-50. Let's fight.
Okay.
Nippon.
Okay. Where you want to begin, man? I think
So look,
Hideo
I,
Kojima is a
I
world
think we
class
start
game
with
developer.
who Hideo Kojima is. I think some people, I think people
You want
know
to
the
read his
name.
Wikipedia?
Yeah, read his Wikipedia, give some people some background, and then let's see. And because again, you may change. Some people's may opinions change. Some people may think, why is this guy always? Because I'm quite sure a lot of people are like, why is him and Jeff Keighley,
Hideo
in this
Kojima.
love
We'll go to
relationship?
Wikipedia.
Why why is everybody fawning all over them? What does this man bring to gaming that makes him?
For anybody that doesn't know, I'll read a quick little synopsis as if I'm doing a book report off Wikipedia. Hideo Kojima is a Japanese video game developer, director, producer, and writer. He is regarded as an auteur of video games. He developed a strong passion for action, adventure, cinema, and literature during his childhood and adolescence. In 1986, he was hired by Konami, for which he designed and wrote Metal Gear, which was in 1987, for the MSX2, a game that laid the foundations for stealth games in the Metal Gear series. His best known and most appreciated works. He's also known for producing the Zone of the Enders series. Man, I love Zone of the Enders, as well as writing and
Yep.
designing Snatcher, 1988, and Police Knots, 1994. Graphic adventure games regarded for their cinematic presentation. Kojima founded Kojima Productions within Konami in 2005, and he was appointed vice president of Konami Digital Entertainment in 2011. Kojima Productions split from Konami in 2015, becoming an independent studio. The studio's first game without Konami, Death Stranding, was released in 2019. There we go. Just a little background on that.
Little quick. So let's go over. So name some of the games that the games or franchise he's created.
I
Let's look at
just
that.
did. I just
No, no,
did.
no. I'm saying, I'm sorry. You said what I'm saying is you named like Metal Gear. I guess what I'm saying is let's start with Metal Gear and Police Knots. Police Knots first because it's probably the shorter one out of it. Do you remember that game, or what
No,
do you remember about Police Knots?
nothing.
Really?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
I literally, when I just read that, I just found that out as I read that.
Really?
Yep, didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Like I knew he worked on other stuff. I didn't know what it was. Like I know him for Metal Gear. I know him for Zone of the Enders, and I know him for Death Stranding and PT. So tell me about Police Knots because I don't know nothing about it.
So, um, here's the wiki from fandom. Police Knots is a cinematic adventure game published by Konami, written and directed by Hideo Kojima. It was initially released for the PC 9821 computer platform in 1994, followed by versions on the 3DO in 1995, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn. The game has never officially been released outside Japan. Um, Police Knots is a graphic adventure game similar to Kojima's previous game, Snatcher. Played mostly from a point and click interface, though some key points of the game um, some key points at the game, the player has to go through shooting sequences against adversaries in order to advance, and at one point, the player has to defuse a bomb. Uh, it's kind of like what's the game? Don, is it Don Bluth? The Dragon Quest.
Dragon
What's
Slayer.
the Dragon? Thank you.
Hmm.
It's kind of like that,
Okay.
but it's more anime. Um, it's it plays more
So with
a
Dragon's
movie.
Lair, that was like the start of quick time, not the start, but like a really heavy presence of like quick time
Yeah.
events where you got to hit buttons or you would die or
Uh
whatever.
huh.
Is that how Police
Yeah.
Knots is too?
Yeah, kind of. It's
Okay.
more like the animation is anime. It kind of really started the whole idea of like Kojima playing with the fact of everything he makes was a movie. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. So uh here's
Side
the
note, hey, Ken from Chicago, I love you slightly annotating all our stuff and providing background information. Definitely appreciate it. It's awesome. Go ahead.
um
As a matter of fact,
so
let me pull this up so people can see stuff. Did I cut you off?
no, I was trying to pull up. I was trying to get so Snatcher is a cyberpunk themed adventure game. It has gained a small cult following due to its mature storytelling, adult themes, and in later versions, voice acting. It is heavily influenced by various sci-fi and noir films, especially Blade Runner. So basically, Snatcher was kind of like cyberpunk before cyberpunk. And the whole idea, the reason why I bring up those games is because if you look at those games now, they seem, I don't want to say tame, they seem like they're everywhere. The problem is Kojima was the first person to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and I, the reason why I bring up these games is because to me, these were some of the beginnings of
This is Police
the
Knots. I
whole.
found on YouTube, by the
Kojima
way.
has
Heard you
always
talk.
been, yeah. So, Police Not Snatcher, these games were like the beginning of what you saw in Metal Gear. The whole idea of like basically you're playing a movie.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? And
Sure.
so when he had these games and anime was like the, not that it's not hot now, but anime was like you were edgy for doing anime stuff back then because the American audience wasn't as educated about anime as they are now. You
Sure.
were one of those. You were still on the outliers. If back in the day in the early '90s, you
You were
know,
the weird person because you had anime.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Hmm.
You like if you knew what Ninja Squirrel was, if you knew what you know Sailor Moon, and I'm not talking like anime. Like people, like anime has influenced a lot of American cartoons. If you go back and look at like Star Command, like a lot of these openings of like remember Cops,
Hmm.
like those openings were anime. I mean, let's and so to see that in a game and to get your hands on it was one of those things you were like, oh, what is this? He pushed the envelopes. So he pushed the envelope. So it's kind of like that was to me the beginning of Kojima learning how to use animation and cinema to tell the story.
Sure.
Um,
I think one thing and really when I was saying, when I say is Hideo Kojima overrated, I'm kind of saying that tongue in cheek. Like I enjoy the stuff that he does. It was more just to say yes because I know you're going to say no, so we got both sides. Like I definitely feel like, well, I won't give my full thesis or my full conclusion, I guess, to the end of this, but I just think maybe he could be reined in a little bit. I do think Hideo Kojima has done a great job in making games feel more cinematic, in terms of pushing that genre, that envelope, and just making people take notice of video games. Like, oh, these can be serious things. They're not
mhm.
just for kids. it's kind of the same way like anime is, where people are like, oh, anime, it's a cartoon, it's for kids. I think in the same way Hideo Kojima did that for games. People realize cartoons and animated stuff in video games can be for adults that can tell mature stories.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's, to me, that's what one of the things that I think Kojima did, because here's the thing that we've always talked about. Um, when are video games going to be taken seriously
Hmm.
as an art form, as not just as a commercial product, and not just as a thing for children? When is video games and the fact that how we go through video games going to be taken seriously? And to me, Hideo Kojima is the one of the progenitors to this.
Hmm.
Um, I I think what we have now is, um, hold on a second.
Sure.
Trying to they're trying to see if I can come to work right now. Like, I'm not joking. I'll be right back.
Hey, okay, yeah, I'll chat with the
keep
audience.
keep keep
Hey,
talking. I'll
chat.
be right back.
Leroy's discussion reminds me of a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys remember. I had to go into work because we didn't have anybody else. Leroy will tell me here in a minute what's going on. I'm curious as to why they need him to come in. Geez, now I kind of need to look at what's going on news wise. They need him to come in. Is it at 10:27? Oh, they must need a director for the 11 o'clock show. Interesting. Um, Folks, this may end up being a short session. We may have to do this later. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll give you my thoughts while Leroy kind of gathers his stuff. Pelosi. Ken from Chicago. I have not been paying attention to the news. I try not to on the weekend because I got to do it 5 days a week. And I don't think it's Pelosi related. Paul Pelosi is supposed to be getting better, so I think that'll be fine. Hopefully. 11 Metal Gear games. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of give you guys my thoughts on. It's fun seeing Leroy in the background. I couldn't be on call. Uh, Being on call, yeah, Zayla Maru, being on call is no joke. It does suck when you think you have a weekend to chill and then something pops up and you got to go in. Especially because I don't know how it is for you guys, but for the businesses that we work at, his news station and my news station, you don't get paid extra for being on call or going into work. You just work and be like, thanks, good job. But anyway, um, Hideo Kojima, I am a firm believer that Kojima needs some sort of, not a yes man, but somebody who's going to question him and say, hey, do we need this? Is this something that we need? Is this something we need right now? Is it something that somebody else can deal with? Just because his ideas are so high minded and high concept. Um, in fact, I think Ken from Chicago brought that up and stuff in terms of the themes that he has. You almost need a soundboard to be like, hey, this is a cool idea, but let's refine it sometimes. I almost feel like sometimes they will put an idea in a game and it's just like, yeah, we'll do it no matter what. And we don't need to do it no matter what. Kojima is like the Wachowskis. They need editors. Yeah. I think and we've talked about this and other stuff we were going to have. A lot of these great auteurs, they are really good, but sometimes they just need editors. George Lucas, he's a genius, but he needs an editor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, and honestly, when you realize what George Lucas was trying to do now, because the Clone Wars have filled in so much, and Dave Filoni and John Favreau have done a good job of filling in what he was trying to do with the prequels. You realize he you realize how much of a genius he is. The problem is no one was helping him streamline his ideas for people to understand. When you go back and realize what he was trying to do with the Emperor, what he was trying to do with Senator Palpatine, and you look at what's going on in the Senate in American politics now, you realize, oh my gosh, this man saw this before any of this stuff happened, and that's by surrounding yourself with the right people, and that's honestly why Kevin Feige has not failed. He's had some missteps, but he hasn't failed yet.
Yeah.
when you look at what Kevin Feige has been able to do, um, it's because he's been surrounded by great people.
Are you going into work or no?
No, Chris is gonna make it.
So, can you tell us what happened or no?
Supposedly they lost their audio operator, and I needed to. Kaylin texted me and said Chris said he's 30 minutes out. Can you make it in 30 before the 11? Um, I when she called me, we were doing this. I told her
Okay.
to text me because I had Owen with me, and Katie went to sleep. And
Hmm.
hey, you bouncing? You bouncing? You love to stand, don't you? You little goofy. And so when I called, she was like, "Josh is stuck in traffic. Wade is teaching Marissa how to do audio. Can you be here before Chris does?"
Whew.
So yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
but enough about that.
Yeah. For real.
Where did you leave off? I heard you were talking about Kojima needed an editor.
Yeah. Essentially, I was just talking about like my basic thoughts about Kojima. I think he's a genius. I do think he's very talented, but like a lot of these auteurs, sometimes their ideas are so big, maybe they don't
Yes.
know the best way to explain them themselves. Like in their mind, they know exactly what it looks like, but you can't always get the idea out. And
Not
sometimes
not.
you just need an editor to be like, what are you really trying to say? And so other
Mhm.
people can understand what you're saying.
And not only that, sometimes the technology doesn't exist for your idea to actually work right now. That's something Tom Cruise just talked about when he mentioned Top Gun Maverick. He said one of the things that he had a problem with, that the reason why Top Gun never had a sequel was because he never had the technology to allow him to do the things he wanted to do.
Hmm.
And we saw if we saw what happened with the technology and how he was able to pull some of these things off, and we were like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Like, I get why you did not want to do Top Gun 2 if this was part of the idea behind it.
Hmm.
um and I think part of it is Kojima. I think he needs an editor, but I also think Kojima's problem is, before I say this, so let's go back. How many Metal Gear games have you? How many of Kojima's games have you played?
I played the mainline Metal Gear games. I didn't do Peace Walker. I didn't do Acid. Like any like the subtitle ones, I didn't do. Um, I own five. I haven't actually played it yet. I want to. I just never got around to it. But I've done one, two, three, four. I think I did Substance and Subsistence, like those director cuts of two and three.
Hmm.
Um, and I've done Zone of the Enders.
Okay, so I have
Carlos
ones
said I
that,
played the pachinko game. Cool.
and then I've got a Snake Eater.
The best game ever.
Really?
I only say that and my heart is just on my sleeve in that because I really love the whole Cold War espionage thriller of it,
Hmm.
and the idea of the theme song is just that. In terms of topic you're talking about, that I think that's one of the best songs for video games ever created. The Metal Gear Solid 3 theme song.
Where basically it's like a James Bond opening after he does the
Yes,
Halo jump.
yes,
Okay.
yes. The
Um,
lyrics are so stupid, but that woman sings the hell out of that song, and it's great.
okay. Um, so I didn't have growing up. We were Sega people.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't play any of the Metal Gear until the first Metal Gear Solid, until it came on PlayStation. And I don't know if I've told this story before. I played the first Metal Gear Solid when I was at the Navy. We were out to sea. And when I started playing Metal Gear Solid, it was after somebody else had played it. I played it on the ship in the mess hall. Um, that game got people who did not play video games to sit and watch me play Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Um, that was one of those times where when you look back and you say that you got something here. Um, I this just goes into a larger topic that we're going to go into later on, one day. It's hard to say for me what is the greatest game of all time, because each game hits you differently, and it depends on what stage of your life are. Depends on when that affects you.
Sure.
Um, Metal Gear Solid was one of the first games to me to introduce um, some of the themes that are just common knowledge now. Like, think about the fact of cloning, uh, private military contractors, PMCs as they're called in the games,
The industrial
DARPA,
military complex.
like,
Like the it's a very complex subject, but I feel like as wild as Kojima is, he made it kind of not easy, but he gave you an easier way to understand the idea of that.
and and not only he made you understand it, he made you understand why it's so important and dangerous. Like,
Mhm.
when you think about the themes that he introduced in Metal Gear Solid, the thing that gets me is, and to a lot of people, I know it's a gimmick, the whole Psycho Mantis fight. To me, the Psycho Mantis fight wasn't. It was game changing because of the controller. To me, the idea behind what Psycho Mantis said about Snake, he says you're one of the few people in the world who isn't driven by the fact of trying to procreate or trying to have kids. And I was like, it was such a profound statement that it took me back. And at the time I was 20 years old, I like it got me then, but it hit even harder 20 years later when I had my first kid, because as I got older, I felt that urge that Psychomantis was talking about, that urge to have kids. Everybody doesn't have it, um, but I felt it, and I know exactly what he meant then, and I even felt it even now, how profound that was, that statement.
Mhm.
And that conversation he had with Snake to me was so profound that I, be honest with you, I'd never like I didn't for up until that point I'd never heard a video game breach these subject matters, these themes, and make it entertaining and not make it feel like a dusty old history lesson, which I love those too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you're an
But
old man. You're a dad. You like history.
I mean, the History Channel, before they started saying, the pyramids were built by aliens, was one of my favorite channels.
Yeah.
Uh, but that Metal Gear Solid to me changed gaming, and literally opened up another thread, kind of like when we watched Loki, and there was the one timeline, and then when they killed he who would not be named, or
He who
he
remains.
he who remains, and then you saw all those other branches. To
Mhm.
me, that was video gaming to a certain extent, and Kojima literally had another branch. It like Kojima did that.
Sure. I wanted
Um,
to highlight one comment from Ken from Chicago. Metal Gear Solid summarized the idea of proxy wars. Um, I think that's an interesting thing because you are a military man, so you're definitely more versed on this. But the idea of proxy wars is something you kind of touched on in the past about different stuff, whether we're talking about Call of Duty games
mm.
or you got like the cold streaming wars or whatever. But I just think that's an interesting comment from Ken from Chicago.
And not only that, in an action game, because remember, we've had RTS games and history games for years. We've had those, but none of those games have hit the mainstream. None of
You
those
talk.
games.
So, are you
Go
familiar
ahead.
with the game Civilization?
Yeah.
Like that is a game that is. I really enjoy Civilization for the turn-based strategy games, but there are different ways you can win. But one of them is a military victory, so it hits at military stuff, right? But it doesn't hit as hard as something like a cinematic game would be from
Hmm.
Kojima.
An action game,
Yeah,
and that's what's really one of those things where you're like, hey, I yeah, I play RT. You play RTS games. You move your people here. You do all of these different things, but Kojima was the first person to make you realize, like when they talk about Shadow Moses, and they talk about here's this team, this special ops team who goes rogue, and you're like, your former, the former members of Foxhound, you're like people forget that Snake was living as a hermit off the grid at the beginning of this game. Like they literally sent him
Yeah, you
in,
had to bring me back in. Yeah.
like, and that, and now we literally have doomsday preppers. Like, I'm not saying we've not had those people, but all of these different themes that Hideo brought into the mainstream that people now use in gaming, that is just like, I'm not gonna say that he was the inventor of these ideas, but he's the one who made them popular.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I said for me, the Metal Gear series. Again, I don't think he's overrated, but I get where people come from when they're like, oh, "Here we go with this shit again, Kojima." Like I get that.
Renee says Rainbow Six did that. Rainbow Six books did that for me. Wish there was a better game behind them in
Hmm.
terms, I guess, getting you to know that the
The
political
early
history and ramifications.
Renee, let me know where you started playing Rainbow Six because I felt like the early, like the PlayStation 2 and 3 Rainbow Six games. I thought those did a very good job of explaining like that. And because Tom Clancy was behind it, I think they took more of a they they
They
they
took it
put
more seriously, or
yes because the themes that he had been putting in his books, they actually, to me, those storylines were a little better than your average like SOCOM. Like I remember when SOCOM came out and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, this is great to play," but the story was bland. Like you don't
Mhm.
remember the SOCOM story. You remember the gameplay, but you don't remember what you were doing in that game.
Yeah.
Same thing with Rainbow Six. You remember the feeling you got playing those games, and you felt like they were great games, but you don't remember the story behind them as far as
Well,
like
I remember the Vegas ones.
the Vegas ones were, yes,
That was cool.
because, but you know why you remember the Vegas ones?
Why?
Terrorism.
Hmm.
Remember that was when you fought. It was terrorism,
Hmm.
bioweapons, and chemical warfare.
Okay, fair enough.
And again, Tom Clancy was ahead of everybody when it came to. Do you talk about auteurs and you talk about geniuses? Tom Clancy was not in the military. Tom Clancy just researched the shit out of everything and
Hmm.
came up with all of this. And so you think about that for a second, and you're like, Some of All Fears, Patriot Games, um, Clear and Present Danger, Rainbow Six. Uh, when you think of all of these different books, The Hunt for Red October, oh my gosh, when you think about all of these different books that he wrote and you realize what he was doing with this stuff, you realize this man was like, are you CIA? Like, how are you coming up with this stuff? Um, Something you mentioned just now, the soundtrack for Metal Gear Solid 3,
In particular, it's really just the one song that I care
the
about.
song.
It really is
But
just the one song.
but it's the one song. But do you remember the feeling you got from playing those games? Like, do you remember the soundtrack as um
Oh yeah, there are definitely times in my life I can remember where games hit me really, really impacted me emotionally. Like especially with certain music cues. Like
mhm,
I remember bits and pieces of Metal Gear Solid 3. I remember how it begins, how it ends. But the thing that always gets me is like, so you hear that song at the beginning or whatever, and
mhm,
then eventually you have to climb up a silo. A silo just goes on forever, and as you climb up, the song slowly builds inside of it. And I don't even know if
mhm.
it ever plays all the way through as you're going up the silo, but you hear part of the refrain. And I'm just like, yeah, this is my shit. Going up the silo, getting hyped for it.
I remember the Halo jump, and then I remember like Snake Eater, and then I remember the snake, and then the skin, like you,
Mm,
not the skin, and then like the skeleton of a snake. Like
mhm.
like that whole beginning opening of that game just really had me um in my like Renee, sorry. Renee, you are so right. Serpent and the Bear, like when you go back and read Tom Clancy, you're like, how did no one pay attention to this man? This man was a prophet.
Mhm.
And I do not say that lightly. Like he had 9/11 before any like I don't understand how 9/11 happened and Tom Clancy wrote about this thing. Like this possibly happening. I sorry the diatribe, but Tom like I wish you read enough Tom Clancy so we could have this conversation about is Tom Clancy a genius and overrated, or was he someone who will never be appreciated for what he brought to entertainment? Um,
Okay.
It's funny you mentioned soundtracks because I have because you didn't. So you played, but you never finished. I bought this.
Was that Death Stranding?
Uh huh.
I did enjoy the music in Death Stranding. I will say that there was
This
something about
is
it that was very calming, just walking through the world.
this is the original score from Ludwig Forsell. Um, the thing that I liked about this is that album produced by Hideo Kojima and Ludwig, original score from the Kojima Productions game.
Hmm.
You mentioned music, and that's one of the things that I can always say that Kojima brought it. He he always he was one of the people who understood that in order to be in the right frame of mind for his games, the music had to match. And he was very instrumental in making sure, because if you remember Metal Gear Solid 2, uh, if you remember the trailer for Metal Gear Solid 2, uh,
Is that the one who's running on a bridge
yeah, but
in the rain or something? Maybe.
I'm trying to remember who they got a Hollywood composer to score that game. And I'm trying to remember who it was. Uh,
To the internet.
yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was. But I remember seeing that name and I remember seeing him and being like, I've seen that name before. Like I'd seen that name, that person score movies that I liked.
Oh, Harry Gregson Williams.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Like when I remember when that trailer I remember when Metal Gear Solid 2's trailer came out, Sons of Liberty, and we saw that trailer and I've probably watched that trailer 100 times.
It was badass.
It was bad, and not only that, the fact that you didn't know Raiden was in the game.
Hmm. Games don't look like this. Oh yeah, I remember
Nope.
all this stuff.
Yep.
Um, I remember such a small talking about, man. I feel like I'm becoming a fanboy of Hideo Kojima all of a sudden. But I remember the because, and you got to help me with the when this stuff came out. But did Zone of the Enders come out and then it came with the demo disc of Metal Gear Solid
Yes.
2?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I remember in the demo disc playing Metal Gear Solid 2 and just like the things you could do in terms of like you could hang on a ledge
Uh huh.
for your grip strength. And the more you did it, the bar would get better because it was like you were exercising. So your grip strength got better, which
Hmm.
was something nobody really thought of in terms of like increasing your stamina through gameplay and stuff like that. And then the ice cubes, they would melt differently depending on whether there were more ice cubes in a glass or not, which was just crazy to think of all the detail he put into that game.
I also thought that when you one of the things that made Zone of Enders so that what sold was the fact that if you bought Zone of Enders, you got that game. But to me, that also introduced so many different people to the world of Hideo Kojima because Zone of Enders was it was a game that everybody had been basically requesting, a mech game that was an action game.
Hmm.
It was, it had you played as a robot, you played as a not a robot, you played as a mech pilot. It was basically a Jaeger, a Gundam. Um, call it whatever you want, but that we hadn't had an American version like that. And I think that was some people's first introduction to Hideo Kojima because it was almost like you got two games in one.
Sure.
Um,
Chris24 says, I want a PS5 Metal Gear Solid remake. I would be okay with that. I know we always talk about like remakes. I feel like there's been enough time that if somebody remade a PS5, like PS5 graphics for Metal Gear Solid, I think that would
I'm
be
gonna tell
great.
you right now, I believe you're going to get a Metal Gear Solid remake before you get a PS5 Metal.
A new
I'm
Metal Gear
sorry.
Solid?
Yeah. Well, hold on. He's saying a PS5 Metal Gear Solid remake. I think he's right. I think he's on the side. I'm sorry. I misread that. I think you're going to get that before you get a new Metal Gear Solid game because
I would agree with that.
I this is what brought in. So here's a little bit of behind the scenes for you guys. Can you hear that dog?
Yeah, we can hear the dog.
Let me
He's
go.
not quiet, or she's not
The,
quiet.
the problem is, so hold on, let me go let this dog in because I told her ass when she went out she wasn't coming back in. But if she's barking like this,
remake or remastered? Man, that's a conversation we could have. Like, what's the difference? So I'm gonna lay out. If you let me know if y'all think this is right,
So
but
if
for
you
me,
could
a
ground
remake
me,
is
somebody would have heard. I put my foot in your ass.
fantastic. To me, a remake is just a game that is the
See, that's
same
what you get.
game. Or no, a remake. A remaster is a game that is the same game, but it just looks better. A remake is they kind of do things differently. So for me, I would love a remake of Metal Gear Solid 5, where they kind
Yes,
of change things around.
yes.
Like so almost kind of the same way Final Fantasy VII remake happened,
Ooh.
where you have the principle of the story, but maybe they kind of change stuff that happens in it.
Hmm.
I think that would be
So,
cool.
so for new people, so it's not like everybody knows exactly what's about to happen. There's they update some things because let's be honest, some things that were made in probably 19 whatever may not hold up. Some of
Hmm.
the wording, some of the because they were Hideo Kojima games were known for having nudie mags in them.
That's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, give me that back, buddy. You can't. Good lord, your strength is good. Probably would kick my ass when you get older. Um, be an old man by then. No, this. So let's back up, and we'll explain why this is a topic. We did a couple of, is it last week? Was it this week? I don't know when it happened, but Silent Hill F trailer released, and
You can find that on
Konami.
our YouTube channel. Are we trying?
There you go.
Hmm.
Konami released three Silent Hill games trailers or announcements, and they said they're doing a sequel to the original movie
Hmm.
with the same director. And basically, Konami's like, "Hey, Silent Hill's back, bitches!" And as we were talking about it, I was like, they didn't know what to do with this franchise after Kojima and after PT.
Hmm.
They like Konami kind of was in a tailspin that they don't know what to do with these franchises because Kojima had become so he had such a vision for these franchises. They don't know what to do, and they don't have anybody in place to help get them to that point. Because we saw what they tried to do with Metal Gear Survive.
I never
Uh,
played it, but it looks bad.
I wanted to play it so bad.
Mm.
It's I wanted to play it so bad, but I like even at like $2 or $3, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Um,
because at that point you're
IGN,
just wasting your time.
yeah, like IGN just lambasted it, and I was like, it can't be that bad. And then when I went back and looked at what IGN said, and then I looked at what other people said, I was like, man, IGN actually went easy on them. Like every other people were like
Hmm.
scorched earth on it, and part of me thought it was a backlash of them what they did to Kojima. And then I looked at the reviews and everybody was like, oh no, this is not just people mad. It was terrible.
Hmm.
Um, so it got me thinking: was Kojima that good that I don't want to say ruined a company, but his firing changed the course of video game history? And is Kojima that big that you didn't get another Silent Hill game, you didn't get another Metal Gear Solid game? Like they have no idea what to do with these franchises. We still haven't got another Zone of Enders game, even though that it would be stupid not to do that.
Sure.
Um, did Konami basically, what's the phrase? Cut off your nose to spite your face. Is that the phrase?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not good at these old timey phrases, even though they probably came out when I was a youngster, so I should know them. Um,
I didn't say anything.
self dig,
Yeah, self dig.
self
So,
burn.
side note. So Bamboo was outside and you let her
Hmm.
in.
Yeah,
I
because I let
definitely,
her out. I
I
let her out
definitely thought
before.
based on how loud she was that she was inside. Didn't
No,
realize she was
she was
outside.
outside
Okay.
because before we started this, I said, "Look, if you go out, you ain't coming back in anytime soon. So make your peace with it." Because she
Okay.
was at the door, kind of whining, and I was like,
Because
"So
she
now."
walked behind you in the camera and just sat down.
Mhm.
I was like,
And I
okay,
was
got
like,
it.
"Okay, so you just go stay at the door, just bark." Like I, so I was like, "Okay." Um, but And that's what brought up this topic. I was like, is Kojima overrated?
Mhm.
Because I'm not gonna say because let me ask you this, and anybody can go and because I don't know this, I should have looked it up, and but I got a little busy. Name the last game Konami made since Kojima's been fired.
You mean like a new game? Because I mean, they have released collections. They've been doing study collections.
That's my point.
Um, and
Name a new property, a new IP. Name something Konami has made since Kojima's been fired. That is Konami. That's not a pachinko machine. Like I know they have money,
oh yeah, they're
but
making money with
but
pachinko
but,
machines.
but like name a Konami game.
Let's go to Wikipedia and see if we can get a
Because
history of
remember, because
games.
here's the thing. Remember, we were watching the Video Game Awards and we saw that game. We were like, that has to be Silent Hill. And we were like, that's not Silent Hill. And
Mhm.
it had somebody else's name up there. And we were like, oh, that. And we were like, is this what they're trying to do instead of Silent Hill? Um,
Hmm. I would imagine they've probably been doing some mobile stuff because I'm just looking.
yeah.
They probably had some Yu-Gi-Oh games, a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh games.
Mhm.
Football. They release a football every year.
Like soccer football?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Pro Evolution Soccer. I think it might just be eFootball now, something like that.
Mhm. I'm
And
surprised
looks like
I'm,
there's a Bomberman, uh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a Cowabunga collection, which wasn't new. That was a collection of games.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's been a minute before you had like a big name title come from them.
Basically the last big name title that came from them was Metal Gear Solid Survive. No, there was something that came out after that that got trounced. They did have something that came out. It was a new game. It came out after Metal Gear Solid Survive, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. I almost thought about buying it, and they railed that game
Mm.
like threw it up in the air, blew it out of the sky. Um, but that's why I was. This is how this topic came up. Is Kojima overrated because he essentially crippled his firing. Konami shot themselves in the face and crippled themselves by getting rid of Kojima. And
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
I always say this. I love to be flying a wall in like those management situations because, granted, they felt like they did what they had to do, but they knew that they would still be able to make money through pachinko stuff and gambling stuff.
True.
So I wonder if they were like, we don't really have to worry about. Or the big question is, I wonder what made them decide to get back with this Silent Hill stuff because they were making money,
Yeah.
like as a company. They didn't really seem to care um, until this big announcement because we talked about Metal Gear Solid, we talked about Silent Hill, a big franchise that people loved, a game that a lot of people consider one of the best of all times, Castlevania Symphony of the Night on PlayStation.
Hmm.
We haven't seen a new Castlevania game in a long time.
Hmm.
The 3D ones have never been considered as regarded as highly as the 2D ones, but yeah, no big 2D game in a minute.
And here's the thing: Castlevania is so big as a genre. There's literally a combination genre with Metrovanias
Sure.
like that. Like we know that that's a genre, and I want to say Bloodstained from one of the people who did a Castlevania game. Um, what's wrong, buddy?
Yeah, that is that
It's
wasn't
on sale on
Konami though,
Steam right
right?
now.
Yeah, it wasn't
No,
Konami though,
what I'm
right?
saying
Yeah.
is, no, what I'm saying is, Castlevania not having a new Castlevania, people have decided to make their own versions of Castlevania games. That's how
Sure.
big Castlevania is. The fact that
Hmm.
we have a Castlevania movie or franchise. We have the anime that was written by Warren Ellis and some other people, but
Which is very
that
good. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
it's on my list. We interviewed I do not want to mess up her name, but I know whatever comes out of my mouth, it's going to sound like whatever um,
You
John
you
Travolta
guys can
did.
go to our you guys can go to our old channel and see the interview we did with
Yeah,
let's see, I have to look her name up now.
uh, Adrian. Rod-
Nope, It's not Adrian.
I see. I don't want to do Adina Menzel that because that's basically what I'm about to do. Um,
Alejandra Reynoso.
yeah, I definitely did not say that lady's name correctly in those interviews.
Yeah,
Um,
you put a flourish on. I was like, what the
yeah,
fuck is he doing? Well,
um,
cool.
but what I was saying is that Konami had Castlevania. They've leased it out and they've allowed this anime to be made. There is no movie coming out. There is no uh, there's no new game coming out, and I'm like, Konami's making money, but you're wasting money by not making games with this franchise to the effect of other people who love this game are making their own version of it.
Hmm.
So if you got up off your ass and made a version of it, you could just bring money in hand over fist.
Sure.
Like, I don't agree with remaking The Last of Us and calling it part one and charging people $70 for it. But let's be honest, Naughty Dog knew what they were doing.
I'm curious what the numbers are for that, like how well it sold.
Mhm. I wonder how much it's going to sell when that show comes out next year. Because you're probably going to see. And here's another thing: does Last of Us make the port to PC? That's the real question. Does
I
Last of
just
Us?
typed in MPD for game sales, September
Mhm.
2022. Last of Us was number five. Last of Us Part 1 was number five.
Golly. So they're just printing money.
Yeah, like now they don't give us the exact numbers. We just know it was the fifth best selling game of the month.
That,
That's retail and digital. Number
that's
one was FIFA. Yeah, dang. Side note: Mario Kart is just killing the game. Mario Kart 8 is number 10, and that game originally came out on the Wii U. So I mean, yeah,
yep.
it's wild.
So then that's what made me think of this title. That's what made me come to this. Is Kojima overrated? Because we talked about that in Silent Hill. A lot of people don't remember Silent Hill. They remember PT because that had Guillermo del Toro and it had uh Daryl from Walking Dead.
Well, Guillermo wasn't in the game, was he?
No, no, no. I'm sorry. The Silent Hill that Kojima was going to make
Okay, gotcha.
that got scrapped.
Got it.
Remember that they had that whole trailer
Hmm.
and everybody was so excited. They were like, Kojima's coming to Silent Hill. And then remember that got canceled. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end.
Hmm.
That like Kojima was not going to be, and that literally signaled, okay, this relationship is deteriorating.
Sure, sure. One game or one series we didn't talk about. We kind of talked about it was, but we didn't talk about as much as we did Metal Gear. Was Zone of the Enders
Yes.
and its place in like video game history and what it
Mhm.
did for like anime and mech games. You talked about the fact that it was kind of revolutionary and that you kind of saw mechs as being fast paced because a lot of times, usually if it's not anime, mechs are usually slower.
Mhm.
You have like Frontline Mission and Mech Assault, those
They're
strategy games
usually
from Microsoft, but they're usually
they
slower paced.
and they're usually RTSs.
Yeah.
They're never really. There was I forget what that action game that was in the arcade where you like sat in a pod
Hmm.
and it was really good. Like you use the foot pedals, it moved. I missed that game. I don't know what it is, but if I ever see it again, I'm buying it. Like I'm buying like the actual arcade version and putting it in the house.
Mechs are
Um,
slow, mecha are fast. Thank you, Ken
yeah.
from Chicago.
So you always got like uh these games that didn't really show their power
Hmm.
on a small scale to like, and to me, Zone of Enders doesn't get enough love because the game that to me is the natural love child of Zone of Enders is Vanquish.
Which one was Vanquish?
That's the one where the guy had the suit.
And was he like on a
And
space station?
yeah,
Yeah, okay, I remember that.
like the
Yeah,
plot
I
is
played that.
terrible.
I
The
played that.
plot is terrible, but
Yeah,
the action and the game itself was amazing. Like I just bought Vanquish again
on Steam Deck.
for the yep, because
Yeah,
it
you
was
talked
three
about it
dollars.
last week.
It was $3.
Vanquish was that Platinum Games?
Whoever did Bayonetta,
Okay, Platinum Games. Yeah.
because
Okay.
remember they packaged them together.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, But yeah, Vanquish might as well be the love child of Zone of Enders.
Mhm.
Like they're pretty much like you can't tell me whoever made Vanquish did not know Zone of Enders existed. And you can't look at Zone of Enders and not realize you're looking at one of the original Gundam series. The whole idea of
At the station.
yeah,
The show's that what they want you to do.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm curious.
Hold
Oh, let me
hold
turn on
on.
my TV and make sure y'all got a newscast going on. I just need to see what's happening. It's real time, folks. Let me make sure the station ain't burned down. Oh, too many. Okay. Just curious. Um, I do see that newscast is on, so I guess that's good. This TV is too fancy for me. Okay, that's cool. Help us, Leroy Green. Help us. You are our only hope. Yeah, I love it. Um, so yeah, talking about Metal Gear and talking about I forgot and talking about I'm kind of invested in what's going on with Leroy right now. I can't even think right now. It's whatever.
All right, I'm back. No, I
Okay.
don't have to go in. Chris made it 10 minutes before the show started. The actual audio operator who was supposed to be there made it in 2 minutes before the show started. So,
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. It's 11 o'clock now.
mhm.
Like I'm sorry, it's 11:07. So the shows are. So they just called to tell you you didn't have to come in.
Chris called me. It was going to tell me what happened. And I was like,
Oh,
hey, man.
okay,
I was
got
like,
it.
hey, because I thought he needed something.
Okay,
But he's
because I
like,
was
hey,
like,
man, I got to tell you. He's like, nah. He's like, they didn't need me. So I'm like,
okay, cool.
anyway. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know, man. I was lo- lost in your drama, just watching it unfold. So I didn't really have anything beyond just talking about Metal Gear Solid and Zone of the Enders.
So go, take me through how you played, how you found Zone of Enders, what made you love it so much? Because you have talked about it more than I have.
I just thought it was cool. Kind of going back to Ken from Chicago's point, mechs are slow, mecha or fast. I just thought it looked awesome. Like we said, you didn't really get a lot of fast moving, big mechanical beasts like that. You had Gundam, but again, that was an anime, and you had like Gundam video games.
Hmm.
But it had a cool look, it had a cool premise, and that's how I got into it. That was it. It just I like the overall artistic direction of the games, and I
So
kind of want
I'm
to go back and play Zone of the Enders too because I don't really remember the storyline that much.
so Zone of Enders, Mars, the second runner. So I didn't hold on. So it's on Steam. It's not Steam supported. I mean Steam Deck supported. I'm adding it to my wish list.
Hmm.
Um, so that's on here. They call them the orbital frame je- jetties or jehetis, uh, and yeah, I'm about to send you to an orbital frame, buddy. Uh, so yeah, Zone of Enders is the second runner is on here. The first one I do not see.
Hmm.
Um, let's type in Metal Gear Solid. Um, so, what do you think Kojima is best? Well, hold on. Let's go back.
Hmm.
I was going to say, what do you think Kojima is best known for? But I will go here because we have talked about this, but maybe not on here as on this channel. Where did Death Stranding lose you?
Probably the packaging, like the getting the packages and walking around. I thought that was fun at first, and I'm like, I'm done with this. Um, and I think
Oh,
I probably rebelled against the game because there was so much hype about how incredible it was. It's like it's all right. So I think part of me was just kind of like fighting back because I didn't want to be part of that saying it was so great. I'm
mhm.
looking back on it now. I think it is a cool idea, but I just think that too many people tried to make it be the greatest thing ever.
Do you think that it interesting? On the Phantom Pain. Do you think your view has changed on it a little bit because of the pandemic?
Mm, Renee, I think you might be talking about Mech Assault. Is a game you're looking for the original Mech game on the original Xbox. Mech about. I don't know. It may have changed for the pandemic.
Because
The idea of
reason
connecting
why
with
I
people
asked,
was so strong. Yeah.
reason why I asked is because there was so much that, again, we talk about people who are geniuses and what they were able to come up with before the masses figured it out. Yeah, he made a package game. A lot of people have been calling. You made Amazon Prime a video game. Uh, he saw this happening, these fragmented communities after a global catastrophe,
Hmm.
and the isolation we all felt, and the idea of connection, pretty much before anybody else. So what I want to say is, or what I want to ask is, do you think you'll ever go back and play it? Because they with the update, the director's cut, they've streamlined a lot.
Possibly. Is it on the PlayStation service?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
Because if it is, I have access to it. Let's see, Death Stranding.
It was one of the free games for a while. It was one of your,
Yeah, but I think it might be like the director's cut might be part of PlayStation Plus or whatever.
because without giving the game away, without giving anything away, yes, the grueling part of the carrying the packages, the acid rain, all of that was tedious, and it pissed you off. It was hard to navigate. What I will say is, it made it worth it, and it made you realize how hard being a courier, or it made the game, those moments made the game what it was, because you had to do these things to basically be the person who's bringing the connection to all these different disparate people. And I
Hmm.
think that was one of the things that I think people, once you got past, or once you got into that and you realized what you were doing and how the game played, don't get me wrong, playing BTs and fighting BTs sometimes was a pain in the ass. Kind of like trying to figure out what this baby needs. Um,
Yeah, Owen's going through a lot right now.
yeah, I think he's tired, and he likes to fight sleep. Like his ass is a cage fighter. Because right now, you see, like what?
Hmm.
Say he's standing up, he's just smiling and just
Yeah.
happy as a pig and shit. This is his normal state. This is what he wants to do. Just stand up and look at stuff.
Hmm.
But he has to go to sleep eventually.
That's what you
Um,
think, Dad.
we'll see. I'll drug a baby.
Huh.
It's not
Well,
called that,
uh,
but hey man, you'd be surprised how many people ask you, "Do you ever put such and such just to get them?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? That's You're literally drugging your child." And they're like, "Hmm." See, when you say that, it makes it sound bad. But if you
on
just
that
put,
note, folks,
like I
is
said,
Kojima overrated? Yes or no? You say no.
mm, I'd say Kojima is not overrated. I say Kojima is an auteur who is one of the Because here's the thing. Here's my question: does Kojima make the leap to film and television? Renee, whiskey on the gums. I thought people were joking when they said that. When kids are teething, that shit is true. People did that. And I literally had people asking me, was I going to do that with Evan? And I looked at them like, do I need to report you to somebody? um, I think Kojima's ahead of his time. I honestly do. I think Kojima is a genius. I think he's an auteur, but I also think he might have been a little ahead of his time. And I think we're just now catching up to the things that he wants to do. The,
I would say, go ahead.
with him, the way he, and I say that because of this. I say that if once you play this and once you realize what he's the subject matters, the things he's broaching in this game, what he talks about, the books and the themes that impressed him. Like I've watched quite a few interviews where he talks about like after I played Death Stranding and I realized once the pandemic happened, he might be one of the smartest game developers as far as story wise we've ever had because he was able to see things and add things in the games and make you feel a certain way that no one else was thinking about.
Hmm.
And he has incorporated actors and movie directors in his games to the point where they're in awe of him. When you have somebody like Guillermo del Toro in awe of you and wants to work with you after so many failed attempts, like he what is his next chapter? What else is he going to conquer?
Kojima's Brain Structure podcast is worth listening to, in my opinion. Okay, I might have to check that out.
I've never heard of that. What is that?
Kojima's Brain Structure.
What I'm saying is it Kojima or is it people talking about Kojima? Like what's the
No, I
what's
think
the
it's
premise?
Kojima. Let's see.
Okay.
Kojima's Brain Structure. Created by renowned game creator Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structures, a podcast talk show offering discussions on a wide range of his favorite topics, including games, movies, books, art, philosophy, and the social landscape. So he just talks about his stuff that he likes.
Okay. I will definitely
Kojima's
check that out.
Musings is what it's called. Mine
I,
is what
I
it's called.
then I will check that out because I think he is a genius.
Okay. I
What
like
about you?
Kojima. I think he just needs an editor. There we go.
Who would you?
I think like a lot of editors, who would I want him to be editor? I don't know.
No. I was going to ask you if he is not the greatest. Who would you say is
Is what?
one of the greatest game developers of our generation?
Miyamoto.
Really?
Yeah, we're done. What are we talking about?
Wow.
What are you? Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic. But I will say this: he's not.
You don't think he's a great game creator?
I don't think he's the greatest game developer. I said developer. I said developer. And game creator, I'm gonna say no. I don't. I do not. You heard what he
He's
said.
a great game creator.
I think you. I said, is he the greatest? That's what I said. Do I think he? I we just now got finished talking about is could Hideo Kojima one of the greatest game developers, or is he overrated? In
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, I think he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
Miyamoto is good. He is great. In my opinion, no, he is not the greatest. I think,
Right, but you just said
and
one of the greatest.
I will, I put him in the top 10. I'll put him in the top 20. I'm not putting him top 5.
Give me four more then.
Kojima.
All right, folks. Nero's being funny over here.
I'm not being funny. I'm
we
just saying.
done.
I think he's okay. I just
But
think
I'm just asking you to give me four more.
I just gave you 5 of them.
You didn't. One person, sir. This ain't the multiverse. He ain't got variants.
No, I'm basically just like on Dave Chappelle. Dylon. He said name 5 greatest rappers. Dylon. I'm going
All right,
Kojima.
folks. We out. I'm done. I'm done with Leroy. Go take care of your kids.
Hey
what got
man,
you through the week?
Andor and because Andor might be one of the greatest Star Wars show. I'm woo. Man, I can't wait to talk about that with y'all.
Is it over yet?
No, we're on
Okay.
episode.
It's got 12 episodes. What does it got?
I think so.
Okay.
It was Andor and something else. Honestly, this week has been a blur. I've had so much happen to me. Did you try to bite me? You know you don't have any teeth, right?
Love it. What got me through the week?
Yeah.
I restarted Persona 5 now that it's on Xbox because it's Persona 5 Royal. So I restarted that. I'm
So
excited
you're
about
just
that.
playing the same game over again because you have about 80 hours in that game already, right?
Yes, but Persona 5 Royal has new stuff in it. So I said I'll start from the beginning again.
Just making sure.
Yeah. But I put it on easy this time so I can get through it a lot faster.
Okay.
I got that. And Sherman Showcase is back. So be excited about that. And I'm finishing up Cobra Kai. Man, Cobra Kai is just a show that's just comfort food.
Have you seen the Cobra Kai Power Rangers mashup figures?
Yeah, I don't like them. They look horrible.
Really? I thought you
Yeah.
would have liked that.
No, I don't like something. The detail in them doesn't look good to me or something. But yeah, I've seen them. I've seen that because I've also seen the Cobra Kai / Ninja Turtle ones too. I'm like, I don't like them.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't like the direction of them. But yeah, that's it, folks. We out. We'll see you next week with another topic. What time will it be? Who knows? Y'all know us.
What will the topic be? I don't know. We could be asking, is Miyamoto overrated or is he the greatest game creator developer of all time? I say no. Michael says yes. Tune in next week.
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah. On that, we out, folks. Later.
Deuces.